Here we are. We are in assignment 6-1. Now this may be a little bit confusing, but just follow along and be willing to watch the video twice maybe. So the first question is, assume you brought 100 shares of Corpon and you paid $43.75. You received $1.22 in dividend, and the stock sold for $47. Question is, what is your expected return over the year? Or what is your return? And that's really, it's just a very plug-and-chug calculation. So you're going to take the stock market price minus the cost. So you've got 47 is the price, 43 is the cost. You subtract that. You add the dividend, 122, and divide it by the stock cost, and that will give you the return. It's just a plug and chug. You need those three things actually: price, cost, dividend, and you're good to go. So that one should be pretty easy. This is the one that you'll go, okay. Now I've set up the spreadsheet to do some calculations for you. There are just some numbers you're going to have to put in the proper place. So if you look in the book, it tells you how to do this, and then I'm going to do it step by step. What they want us to know is the return and the standard deviation from each of these companies, the stock from the company. And they've given us 3 scenarios in each case: recession, stable, and boom. So I want to know what the expected return is for company A first. And that's simply taking that 30%, taking the probabilities, and multiplying them by the return of that probability. So, I mean, and that's a plug and chug, and you'll notice this pops up as soon as I put that in. So they're programmed. You don't have to worry about doing that. You have to worry about getting the right number in the right place. And the final one is 10% times 25%. Okay, so that's step 1. So now, what did I do wrong? That did not calculate. 55, 10%. It did finally calculate at 2.5%. Your return should be 16.9%. And you're going to put that one right there, okay? That's the expected return with these probabilities and these returns. Now, the next thing you want to do is you want to look at the standard deviation. So you have to find the variance to find the standard deviation. Standard deviation is going to show you how much risk, right? How much volatility is in that stock. So to figure that, we now have the return, okay, expected return. So we have to figure out what is the variance of each of the states from the expected return. And that's very easy to do by typing in the expected, or the states for each of the probabilities. Now, when you do that, it does a subtraction. It turns everything to positive, and then it raises each one of these to the second power. They have to be squared. That's what this is. If you'll notice I guess I can slide that up a little bit. You'll notice the formula in there is this cell to the second power. Once you get that done, then you multiply it again by the probability so that you can find out the share of variance of each one of these states. And this variance, and this variance get added up to give you the stock variance. Once the stock variance, which is how big a spread is going to go, what is the spread, you square that now. Get the square root of it to get your standard deviation from the expected rate. And this tells you the amount of risk. So now that you have the return and you have the standard deviation. You're ready. You need to take that and compare it to B. And you can do the same thing, just what I did. And I'm not going to show you how to do this. You can come back up here and pretty well surmise how I did it. You can do it yourself. Anywhere where you have numbers, okay, this has been has formulas in it. Do not type here. These are check numbers right here and here to see if you've done it correctly. So once you get this, you've got this one, now you're going to get this group, and you're going to find the standard deviation. I need to take this out, guys. You're going to have the standard deviation for company B. And then the question is, which stock has the lowest risk? And if you notice in the book, you're going to find the coefficient of variation to find out the true risk. And to get that, you'll do the standard deviation of A over the expected return. The expected return is 6.9, and the standard deviation is 3.807. And that will give you the CV, as I call it. You're going to do the same thing with this one. Whichever one is lowest is going to have the lowest risk. Okay, once we get to that point, now we're going to do the next question. And the next question is a little involved, but it's all been programmed for you. So just very calmly listen. Okay? Now they want us to take these two stocks. This is called a two-asset portfolio. And we're going to see what happens when I buy 40% of stock A and 60% of the portfolio is stock B. These are, this is the information. It's expected return here and expected return for B. Now, what would be the expected return for the portfolio? Well, if I found the expected return here by multiplying these out, probably if I multiply these out and add them together, I'm going to have the expected return of the portfolio. So that one I've given you, so just hang in there. Now we have to do this formula. And this formula is interesting. And it's not in the book, and I do give you a link to go to look at it. What this shows, okay? What this is going to tell us is the standard deviation, okay? We've already got the return, standard deviation, and then the coefficient of variance. This one also has, it gave us the correlation of 0.61, I do believe. Yes. So what we have to do is follow this formula. Now, WA squared is actually the weight, okay? This is the first weight of A. That's the first weight of A is 40%. The variance of A is, stop and think. This is the weight. The variance is, you figured it up here, 1449. So you'll plug that in. B, and B is 60%. And then you'll take the variance of B, once you find it, which is right here, I put it here, 621, times the correlation, or the that they give you of 0.61, And now the standard deviation of A, SDA, which is 3.807, and the standard deviation of B, which is, I've got it down here, but you'll have it in the table, 2.492, and let's see. Okay, now all of these numbers are filled in. The calculations have been made here, and our variance for this portfolio is 7.33. The standard deviation is 2.70, and some odd numbers out there. The rate of return is 14.38. So now I can compare all of this. I already have my variance for stock A. I have my standard deviation. I have the variance for B and deviation. I need the CV here. Then I'm going to figure out the variance here is 7.331. Let's go 4 out. And the standard deviation is 2.7077. And the CV for this, okay, which is its risk factor, is 1882. And there's a period in front of that, or decimal point. So, and then what is this little duber? Let's see, this is this divided by the variance. Okay, so here, across the board, if you look at the risk, notice the risk for the portfolio of the two together, okay, are lower, is lower, is lower than the two stocks individually. So that's what a portfolio will do for you. You can take two stocks that kind of are not perfectly correlated, and they're kind of out of when one goes up, the other goes down, so they kind of edge against each other on the market, and come up with a safer investment than if you were to take either one of these individually by themselves. And that is what all of these calculations help you do. So you will go from two separate stocks, figuring them out, and their probabilities, to combining them into a portfolio using this calculation, or this formula right here, to be able to put together stocks that will counterbalance each other in interest and returns, and come up with a much safer investment than if you just did either one individually. And that's what we look at when we look at standard deviations and variances, because the risk comes from the variance, and the higher the variance, the higher the risk. So run through these and kind of get familiar with some of these terms and how it works, and then think about it, and then answer these questions. And you are done with 6.1. Next up is 6.2. It's not quite as complicated as this. Thank you for listening.